Two girls went hiking and accidentally wandered into an area occupied by Buddhist devotees. On their way, they encountered a group of people and attempted to ask for directions but received terrifying glares from the group. Frightened, they remained silent and continued moving forward. Eventually, they came across a waterfall where numerous monks were practicing. Some were enduring the weight of the waterfall, while others were hanging upside down on the cliffs. A monk approached them and inquired about their situation. He explained that this place was isolated from the outside world, making it difficult to enter or leave. Since it was already late, he advised that descending the mountain would be dangerous and invited them to stay at the temple for the night. On the way to the temple, the monk introduced his sect to the two girls. He explained that it was a sect with hundreds of years of history and millions of followers. That night, the two girls were arranged to stay with another student named Kuramoto. Kuramoto had come there to overcome her social anxiety. In reality, she was there to search for her brother. 5 years ago, Kuramoto's brother had come to this place to practice and then went missing. She had come here hoping to find any trace of him. The next day, Sayako was invited by the monk to participate in the sect's training. She hesitated for a moment and then said she would think about it. That night, Sayako saw hundreds of monks sitting around a bonfire, chanting. Another 100 monks, each holding a torch, walked in an orderly procession to an unknown destination. The three girls observing this were astonished. Kuramoto recognized it as a ritual that occurs every 3 years. The 100 monks were preparing for self-mummification while still alive. All the monks looked emaciated due to a strict diet devoid of any fats. This ritual was now prohibited. Kuramoto knew that her brother's disappearance was related to this ritual. She waited until the monks headed into the forest and then followed them. Before leaving, she advised the other two to leave the place as soon as possible, warning that otherwise, they might never return. However, they decided to follow Kuramoto. The three girls quietly followed the monks' procession. But the monks moved too quickly, and the girls couldn't keep up. They reached a Buddha statue and lost sight of the procession. Kuramoto then found a door behind the statue. They opened it and discovered a massive underground chamber. As they ventured deeper, their flashlights revealed hundreds of mummified bodies standing in rows. Noriko was terrified and wanted to leave, but Kuramoto insisted on staying to find her brother. The three continued deeper into the chamber, passing countless mummies. After some time, Kuramoto found her brother, who had become a mummy. Despite his mummified state, she immediately recognized him. Kuramoto said she wanted to stay with her brother a little longer, so the other two decided to leave. As they looked back before leaving, they saw Kuramoto sitting on the ground, crying desperately. Everything in the place was too strange, and the remaining two didn't want to stay any longer. They walked for a long time but couldn't find the exit, gradually becoming lost in the massive labyrinth. Suddenly, Sayako sat down and screamed that all the mummies had come to life and were staring at her. Noriko tried to comfort her, saying it was just her imagination. But when she looked up, she saw the terrifying eyes of hundreds of mummies staring back at them. Everyone has their childhood memories. When children are young, boys often play with boys and feel embarrassed to play with girls. Kuriko was being mocked by a group of boys when a mother brought her son over to her. Seeing that Kuriko was alone, the mother asked her to play with her son. She even gave Kuriko a piece of chocolate as a welcoming gift. The boy's name was Naoya. Initially, they played together happily, but as Naoya became more attached to Kuriko, she gradually grew tired of him. When Kuriko returned home, her mother gave her a box of cookies, a gift from the new neighbors who had just moved in. They were Naoya's family. Since they were new to the area, Naoya didn't have any friends, and his mother hoped Kuriko would continue to be friends with him. The next day, Naoya followed Kuriko as usual. Kuriko then thought of a prank. She told Naoya she had a secret to share. When he leaned in closer, Kuriko suddenly screamed, scaring Naoya. Then she threatened him, saying caterpillars would crawl into his ear and eat everything, making him cry. She even pulled his ear, causing him to cry louder. After bullying Naoya, Kuriko happily went home. Unexpectedly, the next day, Naoya came to play with Kuriko as if nothing had happened. When he saw Kuriko drinking water, he said he was thirsty too. Kuriko pushed Naoya's head into the water trough, making it hard for him to breathe. She then gave an evil smile. When he cried loudly, she happily ran home again. But no matter how badly Kuriko treated Naoya, he still continued to play with her. By this time, Kuriko had turned into a little demon, enjoying the feeling of bullying Naoya. The more tolerant he was, the more violent she wanted to be. She even made him jump from high places. One day, as she was about to make him jump, Naoya's mother suddenly appeared. The next day, Kuriko asked Naoya if he had told his mother the truth. Naoya immediately denied it. So Kuriko led him to a place with a fierce dog. She threw a ball into the area and forced Naoya to fetch it. When he was too scared to do it, Kuriko pushed him inside. After being bitten by the dog, Naoya's mother took him away. They never saw each other again. Years later, the children had grown up, and Kuriko was dating the boy who had mocked her in the past. She confessed to him how she had bullied Naoya and felt deep regret about it. One day, Naoya suddenly appeared before Kuriko. He told her he harbored no resentment towards her and even admitted he had liked her for a long time. This revelation helped Kuriko let go of her past guilt. She chose to break up with her boyfriend and started a romantic relationship with Naoya instead. Unexpectedly, the horror was just beginning. After getting married, Kuriko gave birth to a boy who resembled Naoya greatly. But one day, Naoya disappeared without a trace, leaving Kuriko to raise their child alone. By the time her son was 4 years old, Kuriko noticed he was becoming more and more like his father. It was then that Kuriko remembered the time she had bullied Naoya. The monster within her awakened. One night, she pinched her son's ear, causing him to cry incessantly. She began applying makeup, returning to her true nature. It was only then that Kuriko realized this was Naoya's revenge. Eventually, she took her son's hand and led him to the old park. History repeated itself, and this time, her son endured what she once inflicted on Naoya. This was why parents needed to teach their children how to perceive the world. Children are like tender shoots not yet fully integrated into society, hence educating them is crucial in everyday life. Ishida, a first-year student, arrived at a house near the school to rent a room. The room he rented was on the second floor of the house. Although it wasn't large, it was very clean. The original owner of the room was the landlady's daughter. The landlady enthusiastically invited Ishida to have breakfast and dinner with her family every day. She explained some necessary things to Ishida and then left. Ishida returned to prepare for moving in. When he went outside, he discovered a very tall wall next to the house, topped with barbed wire. That night, when Ishida returned to the boarding house, he met the landlady's daughter. Shinobu seemed introverted and spoke very little. That night, as Ishida was sleeping, he heard the sound of children playing. But it was already late. Why would children be playing around here? He looked out the window to inquire but received no answer. He climbed up the wall next to the house and told the children to be quiet, only to find the alley pitch black and empty. The next day, while Ishida was tidying up his room, Shinobu unexpectedly came to help him put books into the shelf. He mentioned the incident from the previous night, but Shinobu wasn't surprised. She said there were many alleys around, so he might have misheard sounds from another alley. When she stayed in the room, she also heard similar sounds. After learning that Ishida climbed the wall, she advised him not to do that again, as it was too dangerous. At night, Ishida heard the sounds from the alley again. This time, someone kept calling Shinobu's name. The next day, Ishida was on his way to school when a strange man stopped him. The man said he had rented the same room Ishida was staying in 10 years ago. During his stay, he experienced nightmares every night. He believed that a murder had taken place in the alley next to the house. In that alley, there was an iron door leading to a basement. He claimed to have seen the bodies of 3 children inside. The strange thing was that when he counted to 3, the children would jump out of the wall and play together. While staying in that room, he saw them every night from the window. Ishida didn't believe him, insisting he hadn't seen anything in the alley. But the man, trembling, grabbed Ishida's shoulders and said there was a hidden window in the room. He urged Ishida to find it and look into the alley. Ishida returned to his room, constantly thinking about what the man had said. He guessed the hidden window might be behind the bookshelf, so he moved it. Sure enough, he discovered a small window behind it. Next to the window, there was a rope extending downwards. Looking through the window, he saw 3 shadows on the wall. Out of curiosity, Ishida held onto the rope and descended. Besides the 3 children's shadows, there were also 3 adult shadows. The walls were covered with hateful inscriptions. At the end of the alley, he found the iron door, just as the man had described. It was locked, so he used a stone to break the lock. Inside, he found several corpses of varying sizes. Terrified, Ishida backed away and quickly tried to climb up the rope to return to his room. Before he could pull himself up, a hand holding a knife reached out and stabbed him, causing him to fall to the ground. It was Shinobu. She revealed that the alley was her secret. Shinobu had killed the 3 children in the basement. When she was young, the 3 children had taken over the alley as their playground. She had locked them in the basement until they died. Her father discovered their bodies and built the wall next to the house to seal off the alley. However, every night, the 3 children emerged from the wall to play. Unable to endure this, tenants would move out one by one, leaving the alley as Shinobu's exclusive territory. Only she could access it. Shinobu also tricked 2 classmates she hated into coming here and killed them. Her father, who constantly nagged her, was also killed by her. These 3 adults were the shadows on the wall. Every night, they shouted Shinobu's name in hatred. She never went there at night, so they couldn't harm her. Shinobu's mother wanted to rent out the room, but Shinobu always opposed it. Seeing Ishida unconscious, Shinobu climbed down, intending to lock him in the iron gate. Unexpectedly, the rope above snapped. As night fell, Shinobu sat in a corner. The 6 shadows, representing the 6 people she had killed, suddenly appeared. With no place to escape, Shinobu faced her inevitable death. Okabe was a teacher in the school's art club. He successfully held an exhibition of his works a few days ago. The statues Okabe created were all headless. He believed that human faces had too many expressions, and by removing them, his works would inspire rich imagination in viewers. Shimada told Rumi to go home ahead because he had to stay and help the teacher finish some unfinished pieces. The next day, when Rumi arrived at school, she saw many police officers cordoning off the area. She asked her friends and learned that Mr. Okabe had been murdered the previous night. The killer had removed Mr. Okabe's head and taken it away, leaving only his body in the gallery. Rumi thought of Shimada since he had stayed behind to help the teacher the day before. Her classmates mentioned that they hadn't seen Shimada yet that day. After school, Rumi ran to Shimada's house, but he refused to open the door. She spoke through the intercom, asking Shimada if he knew about Mr. Okabe's death. Unexpectedly, Shimada cut off the connection. As she was about to leave, Shimada suddenly opened the door. He asked if Rumi suspected him of being the killer. Rumi was puzzled to see Shimada wearing a mask on a hot day. To her surprise, Shimada suddenly confessed his feelings for her. He said he looked forward to seeing her in class every day and that his heart raced when he saw her. Shimada said he had a secret to tell her and led her towards the school. Meanwhile, 2 of Rumi's classmates returned to the school to retrieve some forgotten reference books. They saw a shadow outside the door. When they opened it, they saw Mr. Okabe's head and screamed in terror. His face was pale and distorted. Shortly afterward, Shimada and Rumi arrived at the school. He told her that Mr. Okabe was actually still alive and that he wanted to take her to meet him. As Rumi was about to hold Shimada's hand, she noticed he was wearing gloves. His palms were extremely hard, unlike those of a normal human. Inside the gallery, Rumi smelled the stench of rotting flesh. Okabe's statues had disappeared, leaving only a headless female statue. While she was confused, Shimada suddenly locked the door and removed his mask. Blood was dripping from his mouth, and his face was stiff. He spoke without moving his mouth at all. Shimada then pulled off the cloth covering the female statue's head. Mr. Okabe's head was attached to it. Shimada threw Mr. Okabe's head to the ground and advanced towards Rumi, saying that her beautiful head would be perfect for the statue. Rumi, terrified, slapped Shimada's face, causing his head to suddenly fall to the ground. This horrified her even more. Shimada's body slowly approached Rumi. She screamed and backed away. Then she grabbed a nearby chair and struck Shimada's body, causing it to fall apart. Seizing the opportunity, Rumi picked up the key to unlock the door, but the headless female statue behind her started moving. It held a knife and advanced towards her. Rumi screamed and opened the door to escape, only to be blocked by another male statue in the hallway. She ran upstairs, burst into a classroom, and locked the door behind her. When she turned around, she saw the headless bodies of 2 female students on the floor. She screamed in horror. In the corner of the classroom, several statues were fighting over the heads of the 2 female students. Rumi's screams attracted their attention. Seeing her beautiful face, they wanted to possess it and ran towards her. Then another statue holding a knife began breaking down the door. Rumi continued to scream in agony, but it was unclear which statue ultimately claimed her beautiful face. Mayumi came from an upper-class family but had severe mental health issues. Every day, she questioned whether she should wake up and breathe. Normal human activities seemed complex to her. Every action Mayumi took required guidance from others. Thus, her family hired a personal caretaker. Mitsu, upon seeing the job advertisement, applied at Mayumi's house. Previous caretakers couldn't endure Mayumi's endless questions for long. She wasn't simply indecisive, her questions repeated daily. Mayumi's father took Mitsu to her room, where they found Mayumi in a state of disarray. She continuously asked the wall whether she should stand or lie down, and if lying down, whether she should lie on her back or stomach. When her father told her to sit and talk, she asked whether she should sit on the chair or the floor. Despite Mayumi's severe mental condition, Mitsu decided to take the job due to the high salary. She genuinely took good care of Mayumi, leaving only when Mayumi was asleep. Mayumi's father was very pleased with Mitsu's performance and asked her to start work the next day at 8 a.m. He was still worried that Mitsu wouldn't be able to endure the job for long. The job required patience and a lot of energy. Previous caretakers had performed well initially but eventually chose to quit. Unexpectedly, Mitsu managed to stay for a month. No one had endured Mayumi as long as Mitsu. She not only didn't quit but also worked diligently. Mayumi's mental state improved, and Mitsu's care made her less frantic. Mayumi's father had installed many cameras in the house, allowing him to monitor his daughter's actions. Due to Mayumi's improvement, he believed Mitsu might be a special person capable of giving his daughter a normal life. He felt Mitsu was not ordinary and asked his subordinates to investigate her past. One day, Mayumi's father noticed Mitsu looking very haggard. He thought she was exhausted from taking care of his daughter and decided to give her a day off, but she refused. She said she enjoyed the job and felt happy seeing Mayumi happy, so she wanted to be with her daily. Mayumi's father didn't want to force her. When he asked about the bruises on her face, she dismissed them as nothing unusual and left. Another month passed, and Mitsu's endurance surpassed that of an average person. Under Mitsu's guidance, Mayumi became increasingly joyful. Mitsu's actions also brought positive and fortunate impacts to Mayumi's family. One day, while Mayumi and Mitsu were taking their usual walk, a truck suddenly lost control and hit a pedestrian, killing them. Mitsu had directed Mayumi to go in a different direction, thus avoiding the accident. This incident made Mayumi's father believe even more firmly that Mitsu was bringing good luck to his daughter. Later, Mayumi knocked on her father's door. Under Mitsu's guidance, she handed him a flower. Thanks to Mitsu, Mayumi had become just an ordinary girl. Mayumi's father's subordinates had found information about Mitsu. She was living with her boyfriend, who did not work and lived off her like a parasite. He gambled away the money Mitsu earned, and if she didn't give him money, he would beat her. This explained the frequent bruises on her face. Mitsu took the job of caring for Mayumi because of the high salary, which allowed her to support both herself and her boyfriend. Mayumi's father, knowing Mitsu was being exploited, considered helping her get rid of her abusive boyfriend. However, he feared that if Mitsu's boyfriend disappeared, she might leave the job, so he chose to ignore the situation. 2 weeks later, Mitsu was found dead at her home. Her boyfriend became a wanted criminal on the national list. Upon hearing of Mitsu's death, Mayumi's father worried that without her, his daughter wouldn't be able to take care of herself. Surprisingly, Mayumi continued her daily routine as if Mitsu were still there, guiding her every action. This reassured her father, who thought Mayumi could finally live independently. One day, Mayumi went to the garden and began stabbing the ground with a knife repeatedly, asking the air if she was using enough force. That night, under the red moonlight, Mayumi killed a man beside a trash bin. The victim was Mitsu's boyfriend. When Mayumi returned home covered in blood, her father immediately asked what had happened. Mayumi confessed that she had killed Mitsu's boyfriend, following Mitsu's guidance to eliminate the vile man. Soichi is a character greatly favored by author Junji Ito, with the image of a boy with abnormal thinking. He has created many stories around Soichi's daily life. One day, on her way home from school, Sayuri saw a very cute cat. She didn't want it to keep wandering, so she brought it home. After discussing with the family, everyone agreed to let the cat stay. Koichi and Sayuri named the cat Koran. Once the cat got used to living indoors, it began to explore around. Suddenly, a hand reached out, and Soichi appeared with nails in his mouth. The cat was startled but then farted in Soichi's face and walked away. Soichi was furious and chased the cat, intending to tie a rope around its neck. Just then, Sayuri appeared. She scolded Soichi and slapped him, causing him to fall near the cat. Koran scratched Soichi's face, leaving 3 marks. The whole family then sat down to talk. Koichi believed that their mother pampered Soichi too much, which led to his current behavior. Soichi not only had twisted thoughts but also a severely disturbed psyche. If he didn't change, he would surely cause trouble in the future. Koichi felt that his brother was very strange, not only lacking affection for others but also showing a violent tendency toward animals. As Koichi kept scolding, Soichi angrily glared at him. Then the cat jumped onto Sayuri's lap, and she noticed it had static electricity. Sitting nearby, Soichi heard their conversation and began to hatch dark plans. The next day, Sayuri and Koichi went outside and saw Soichi holding a dead snake to scare the cat. Koichi told his brother to throw the snake away, but Soichi refused. After that, the cat grabbed the snake from Soichi's hand and took a big bite. In the following days, the cat started tearing apart animal carcasses, from centipedes to spiders. They all became the cat's meals. Seeing that his curse was progressing smoothly, Soichi approached to pet Koran. The family began keeping the cat indoors to prevent it from continuing to eat strange creatures outside. The atmosphere in the house became stifling, with a foul odor and cat hair flying everywhere. Sayuri couldn't stand it anymore and went to Soichi's room. She saw her brother sitting on a chair, wearing a mask, and holding the cat in his lap. By this time, Koran had turned into an extremely aggressive cat, no longer the cute pet it once was. Koran constantly scratched itself, causing cat hair to scatter everywhere. When Sayuri tried to take the cat away, it glared at her fiercely and growled. She backed away in fear, crying. Koichi, seeing this, approached to pick up the cat. Unexpectedly, the cat emitted a strong electric current that blew Koichi away. Soichi was unlucky enough to be stuck with the cat. The family fled in terror, while Soichi screamed for help, but no one dared to go back inside. The cat even bit Soichi's hand. Suddenly, a powerful electric current surged through Soichi and the cat. The next day, Soichi was severely injured and lying in the hospital. The cat had returned to its original appearance. Soichi lay in bed with nails in his mouth, while Koran, seemingly still sensing Soichi's curse, opened its eyes wide and stared intently at him.